Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with yours truly. So today we are tackling something I think we all struggle with from time to time. That's right, we're talking all about negative thoughts.
You got it. And you know what? Those negative thoughts can really make things tough sometimes. But the good news is we can actually learn how to not let them run the show,
Yeah, it's like a mental tune-up, getting those thoughts in shape. So we've got a bunch of really interesting sources here that dig into all of this. And one of the things they talk about are these things called thought traps. What are those all about?
So thought traps are kind of these patterns, right? They happen in our minds and they kind of trick us into seeing things way more negatively than they really are. Like they're messing with our perspective.
So it's like our brain is playing tricks on us.
You got it.
Yeah.
And actually one of the sources uses a really good example. They talk about the thought, like having this thought that keeps popping up, I'm useless,
Yeah.
And how that thought can spiral, make you feel down, even depressed.
Makes sense. If you're feeling down all the time, you might start to avoid things like, going out or maybe even doing the things you normally enjoy.
And that's where the trap snaps shut, right? Because that withdrawal just feeds the negative thought even more. It's like this cycle gets going, your thoughts, your feelings, how you act, all of it feeding off each other.
Whoa, so we've got to break the cycle. So tell me, what are some of these common thought traps? The ones we should really be on the lookout for.
Okay, so first up, and these names are kind of cool, all or nothing thinking. This one is all about extremes. It's like black and white, no in between, right?
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there. If I don't totally nail that presentation at work, I'm a total failure. End of story.
Exactly. And then there's crystal ball gazing, where you basically decide you can see the future and surprise, surprise, it's always bad news.
Oh, I know this one. I'm going to go for this job interview, and even though I have the right experience, I'm convinced I'm going to bomb it.
Yeah. And then mind reading. So that's when, you just decide you know exactly what other people are thinking, and most of the time it's something negative about you.
Well, okay, so the sources also talk about a few more, right? What else is there?
Oh, yeah. So we've got things like labeling, where we kind of slap these negative labels on ourselves and even other people, like I'm a loser, stuff like that. And then catastrophizing. This one, we take things and blow them way out of proportion. It's like only the worst case scenario will do.
Mm-hmm. So basically, we're our own worst critics, and we let all these thought traps kind of run wild and really mess with how we see reality.
It happens. I mean, it happens to all of us, right?
But here's the good news. Once we can spot these sneaky traps, we can start fighting back.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. We know what the traps are, but how do we actually challenge these negative thoughts? I mean, they feel so real sometimes, so convincing. You're right. And you know what? One of your sources has this really clear two-step process. So first, you got to figure out what kind of negative thought are you dealing with. Is it that all or nothing thinking, mind reading, whatever it is, figure out what trap you're in, and then here's the key, you got to challenge it.
Challenge it. What does that even look like, though?
So think of it this way. It's like you putting that thought on trial, okay? You really got to ask yourself some tough questions. Your source gives some great ones, do I actually have enough information to support this thought?
That's a good one, because a lot of times, we jump to conclusions without thinking things through.
Right. Or another good one, what would my best friend say if they heard me thinking this way?
That is so good. We're always so much harder on ourselves than we would ever be on a friend.
It's true. And there's one more thing, too. Another source, they emphasize that trying to just push those negative thoughts away, pretend they're not there, it can actually make them stronger.
Oh, interesting. So it's almost like the more you resist them, the more they fight back.
Exactly. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the more it wants to pop back up.
Okay, that makes total sense. So instead of trying to ignore those thoughts, we got to face them head on.
Yes. See them for what they are, but don't let them be the boss. Don't let them control how you feel or what you do.
This is so helpful, but how do we do that? I mean, are there specific techniques or tools we can use to actually challenge those negative thoughts?
Absolutely. Your sources are full of practical advice. One of them actually lays out 5 specific techniques that you can use in everyday life. And they even give real life examples for each one.
Okay, now we're talking. I am ready for some actionable tips. Let's hear it. What's the first technique?
Okay, so the first one is called What Are the Chances? This is all about getting some perspective on our fears,
Oh, I like that. So instead of letting our anxieties go crazy, we kind of step back and we're like, okay, how likely is this scary thing to actually happen?
Exactly. Like, let's say you're terrified of public speaking. You can ask yourself, what are the chances, right? What are the chances I'm going to faint or forget everything I'm supposed to say?
And honestly, the chances are probably pretty slim.
Yeah.
Our minds love to make things seem way scarier than they really are. Okay, so what's the next technique?
All right, so this one is called, what is the worst thing? This one is great for, like, containing those anxieties and getting a grip on things.
So we're basically saying, okay, even if the thing I'm scared of happens, is it really the end of the world?
You got it. So, like, imagine you're nervous about a job interview, right? Instead of letting your mind go crazy with all the ways it could go wrong, you stop and you ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen?
Okay, so maybe I trip over my words a little. Or there's this, like, awkward silence. But, like, is that really going to ruin my whole career? Probably not.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. Don't let those negative thoughts make a mountain out of a molehill, right?
Love it. Okay, give me technique number 3.
All right, so this one is called, am I right to think that? This one's kind of fun. It's like you become a detective, you know? You got to examine the evidence. Is this negative thought really true?
So we're not just going to accept those thoughts as facts. We're going to put them on trial.
Yeah. Gather the evidence. Is there any real proof to back up your thought? Or are you just, letting your emotions run wild?
This reminds me of mind reading. When we think we know what other people are thinking, this technique could be awesome for challenging those assumptions.
Oh, totally. Are those assumptions based on something real? Or are you just kind of projecting your own insecurities onto other people?
Okay, so what's number 4? I'm hooked on these.
This one is the 5-year rule.
Ooh, the 5-year rule. Like the sound of that already. What's the deal with this one?
So it's pretty simple. You just ask yourself, will this even matter 5 years from now? It's amazing how much perspective that one little question can give you.
So true. We get so caught up in the moment, right? But when you think about it, most of the stuff we stress over is really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
It's all about seeing the bigger picture, right? Figuring out what really matters and what's just a little bump in the road.
I love that. Okay, hit me with the final technique on this list. What have we got?
All right, this one is called, what is this worth? And with this one, you got to think about, okay, am I spending way too much time and energy on these negative thoughts that aren't actually helping me?
It's like a reality check for our thoughts.
Exactly. Are your negative thoughts worth the stress they're causing?
I love that. Okay, so all 5 of these techniques, it's all about really looking at our thoughts, right? Questioning them, getting some evidence, finding some perspective, and then choosing where we put our energy. They're so powerful. But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to those unhelpful thinking styles that you mentioned earlier. Rumination, worry, and perfectionism.
Oh yeah, those are big ones. And they might not be thought traps exactly, but they can definitely keep us stuck in this negative cycle,
Totally. So what did the sources say about dealing with those?
Well, remember worry time from earlier. The idea is to just pick a specific time each day where you can, sit down and let yourself worry. It can be helpful for people who just worry constantly,
Yeah, contain it. Don't let it take over your whole day. What about rumination? That dwelling on the past. Any advice for that one?
One of your sources, it suggests shifting your focus. Instead of asking, why did this happen? Ask yourself, what now? What can I do now to move forward?
That is such good advice. Rumination can keep us stuck in the past, but when we can bring our attention to the present moment, it can be really empowering. Okay, what about perfectionism? How do we overcome that one?
Well, one of the sources points out that a lot of times perfectionism comes from this fear of failing. So one thing that can help is to think of failure as a chance to learn.
Ooh, I love that. I mean, we all make mistakes, right? It's part of being human. What matters is that we learn from them and we don't let those mistakes define us. It's all about self-compassion,
For sure. When we can embrace imperfection, give ourselves permission to mess up sometimes, it's actually really freeing.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I have so many more tools to deal with those negative thoughts now.
That's awesome to hear. And remember, learning to challenge those negative thoughts. It's a process, right? It's going to take time and practice. But with these tools, you can start to change those thought patterns and create a more positive space in your mind.
Seriously, I'm going to be coming back to this deep dive again and again. Okay, so what's up next? If we're always telling ourselves we're not good enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, whatever it is that's going to affect how we see ourselves overall. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then it's like this vicious cycle starts up, low self-esteem. It makes us way more vulnerable to those negative thoughts. And then those negative thoughts just feed right back into that negative self-image. It's like we're trapped in this like funhouse of mirrors,
Yeah.
all those distorted reflections, and it's hard to see ourselves clearly.
Whoa, that is such a powerful image. But like we've been talking about, we don't have to stay trapped, right? We can break free.
Oh yeah, definitely. Remember those techniques we talked about? Those 5 challenges for like really combating those negative thoughts? Well, those are awesome tools for boosting self-esteem too.
So let's say I'm having a thought like, ugh, I'm a total failure because I didn't get that promotion. I can use those challenges to like put that thought on trial, right?
Exactly. So you can ask yourself things like, hold on, is one single event really going to define my entire worth? Like, come on. Or what evidence do I actually have to back up this failure label? Is it really true? Or even, what would I say to a good friend who is feeling this way?
Yeah. It's about being kind to ourselves.
Right.
Right. Just like we would be to a friend.
You got it. It's all about self-compassion. And as you practice these techniques, you'll start to see yourself in a more positive light. Guaranteed.
It's like we're rewiring our brains, trading in those negative beliefs for something way more empowering.
Love it. That's exactly what it is. And guess what? As your self-esteem grows, you're naturally going to be less vulnerable to those negative thoughts in the first place.
Wow, so it's about breaking free from that funhouse of mirrors,
Yeah.
seeing ourselves clearly with all our strengths and, yeah, our imperfections too, right? So, any other strategies that can help us cultivate a more positive mindset? Anything else we can add to our toolkit?
One of your sources talks about gratitude, and it sounds simple, right? But taking some time each day to just appreciate the good stuff, even the little things, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, when we're focused on what we're grateful for, it's way harder to get bogged down in the negative.
It's true. And another one that's really powerful, self-care. When we make time for things that nourish us, mind, body, soul, it just boosts our mood and makes us more resilient overall.
Oh yeah, the basics, right? Sleep, healthy food, moving our bodies, getting out in nature, doing things we love.
Yes. It's about treating ourselves with kindness, like the same kind of kindness we'd show to someone we care about.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to recap banishing those negative thoughts, it's about spotting those thought traps, using what we've learned to challenge them, and practicing that self-compassion.
Yeah.
And, just as important, bringing more gratitude and self-care into our lives.
You nailed it. And hey, it's a journey, not a race, right? Some days are going to be better than others. But with practice, with keeping at it, you can manage those negative thoughts and live a happier, more empowered life.
This has been amazing. Seriously, I've learned so much from this deep dive. Thank you so much for walking us through all of this.
My pleasure. And remember, you have the power to change your thinking. And when you change your thinking, you change your whole life.
So true. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into banishing negative thoughts. I hope you found it as insightful and as helpful as I have. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. We all deal with those negative thoughts sometimes. But with the tools and strategies we've explored today, you can start shifting those thought patterns and create a more positive, more fulfilling mental landscape for yourself. Until next time, keep those thoughts in check. Keep exploring and keep on shining.